it is something that it is anathema to what it means to be a democratic country. And regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrific and a tragedy. What happened, as you mentioned, to the state legislators in Minnesota, that is horrific. It is a tragedy. And there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The central premise of our democratic system is that we have to be able to disagree and have sometimes really contentious debates without resort to violence. And when it happens to some, but even if you think they're quote unquote on the other side of the argument, that's a threat to all of us. And we have to be clear and forthright in condemning it. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have a debate about the ideas that people who were victims of political violence were promoting. And so I've noticed that there's been some confusion, I think, around this lately. And frankly, coming from the White House and some of the other positions of authority that suggest, even before we had determined who the perpetrator of this evil act was, that somehow we're going to identify an enemy. We're going to suggest that somehow that enemy was at fault, and we are then going to use that as a rationale for trying to silence discussion around who we are as a country and what direction we should go. And that's a mistake as well. And so, look, obviously I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I was generally aware of some of his ideas. I think those ideas were wrong. But that doesn't negate the fact that what happened was a tragedy and that I mourn for him and his family. He's a young man with 2 small children and a wife who obviously, and a huge number of friends and supporters who cared about him. And so we have to extend grace to people during their period of mourning and shock. We can also, at the same time, say that I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake.
So, Barack Obama said basically this: no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was horrific and a tragedy. He reminded everyone that democracy depends on us being able to debate, sometimes fiercely, without violence. Obama also pointed out that even if you didn't like Kirk's ideas, that doesn't erase the fact that his death is a loss for his family, friends, and supporters. At the same time, he made it clear he strongly disagreed with many of Kirk's beliefs, like criticizing civil rights, attacking people like Michelle Obama or Justice Jackson, and pushing conspiracy theories. Obama's bottom line? Condemn violence, mourn the loss, but still hold firm on principles. Wow. Okay, first off, it's wild hearing Obama talk about Charlie Kirk with that level of seriousness. I honestly wasn't expecting him to be so clear about separating the man from the ideas. Like, he's saying, yes, I disagree with Kirk's views, but that doesn't mean I celebrate what happened. That's actually a very grown-up, sobering take. I also caught how he shaded some of Kirk's more controversial statements without making it feel like he was dunking on him. That balance, grace and criticism, is something we don't see a lot in politics these days. Honestly, I respect it. For us as viewers, I think the lesson here is, we've got to be able to disagree without dehumanizing each other. You don't have to like someone's ideas to show compassion when tragedy strikes. And you also don't have to abandon your beliefs just because you're showing empathy. Holding those two truths together, that's what keeps society from falling apart. So what do you think? Was Obama fair in his reaction? Or do you feel like he missed something? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear where you stand on this. And hey, if you're vibing with this breakdown, make sure to hit that like, tap subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next shock filler reaction.
And replace them by ushering in illegal immigrants. Those are all topics that we have to be able to discuss honestly and forthrightly, while we still insist that in that process of debate, we respect other people's right to say things that we profoundly disagree with. That's how we should approach this. Now, the last point I'll make on this, or building on the point I made earlier, I've been very impressed with Governor Cox in Utah and how he's approached some of these issues. I suspect Governor Cox and I disagree on a whole bunch of stuff. He is a Republican, a self-professed conservative Republican. But in his response to this tragedy, as well as his history of how he engages with people who are political adversaries, he has shown, I think, that it is possible for us to disagree while abiding by a basic code of how we should engage in public debate. I think your own governor here, Josh Shapiro, has done the same thing. When I was president, in the aftermath of tragedies, when Dylan Roof went into a black church and, based on his own words, shot a group of folks who were engaged in Bible study and who had invited him in. And according to him, it was for racist reasons. As President of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents and use them. George Bush, again, I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but he is a good, gracious man, and one of the most commendable things that he did after 9/11, the most horrific thing to happen to the United States during the course of my lifetime, in my memory, in the aftermath of this terrible tragedy, made a point. We are going to go after the people who perpetrated this. But he explicitly went out of his way to say, we are not at war against Islam, and systematically and repeatedly talked about how we can't use this as a way to divide and target fellow Americans. And so when I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling...
Okay, so, in this clip, it's Barack Obama speaking. He's saying that even when debates get heated, we've got to respect people's right to say things we totally disagree with. He praises leaders like Governor Cox in Utah and Governor Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania for showing you can disagree without being hostile. Obama also reflects on his own time as president, like after the Charleston church shooting, and points out he didn't use that tragedy to score political points. He even gives credit to George W. Bush after 9/11 for reminding Americans that the fight was against terrorists, not against Islam itself. Obama contrasts this with how today's leaders sometimes label opponents as vermin or enemies, which he warns just deepens division. Man, I've got to say, that's a powerful reminder. I wasn't expecting Obama to shout out both Republican and Democratic governors, and even George W. Bush. That shows he's not just speaking through a partisan lens, he's really trying to model what unity should look like. And honestly, hearing a former president talk about respecting people you disagree with, it feels kind of refreshing in today's political climate. What really caught me is that subtle jab at current leaders. You can tell Obama's worried about how the language of politics is heating things up instead of cooling things down. And he's not wrong. When leaders call opponents enemies, it trickles down to regular people and makes everything feel like a war. Here's the takeaway for all of us. Disagree without dehumanizing. You can be tough on ideas but gentle with people. We need more of that energy in our everyday conversations, at work, at school, even at the dinner table. If presidents can praise people they normally disagree with, we can too. So what do you think? Do you agree with Obama's approach? Or do you think he's being too idealistic here? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. And hey, if you're enjoying these breakdowns, smash that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another reaction from my shock filler. Alright y'all, until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.